Chapter 21. A Dust-Covered Bible. As Nancy, her father, and 2 police officers stood behind a screen, other policemen escorted 5 women across a small stage, which was brilliantly lighted. All were heavy-set, dark-complexioned, and wore street clothing. Blinking under the bright lights, they stared straight ahead. Nancy gazed at each woman in turn. Then, without the slightest hesitation, she said, "The one in the center is the perfume seller. She is known to me only as Madame." "Good," praised Mr. Drew. "That makes the identification positive." After the prisoner had been led away, he told Nancy that he previously had identified the same woman as the one who had accompanied him in the taxi to Fisher's Cove. "The woman who drugged you?" Nancy cried. "I'm convinced of it. We'll place charges against her." Nancy learned that Madame, who had been posing as the Spanish Senora while in Yorktown, had been caught by the police as she sought to sell Sweet Chimes perfume to the proprietor of a beauty parlor. She had denied knowing Mr. Drew or having anything to do with the Moncure firm. "She refuses to tell us anything about her confederates," the lawyer added. "Fortunately, a number of names and addresses were found in her pocketbook when it was searched. The police are checking them now." As Nancy and her father stepped into the corridor, they came face to face with Madame, who was being escorted to her cell by 2 policewomen. Seeing the girl, she suddenly halted to glare at her. "Your meddling did it," she cried furiously. "You're responsible for me being held here. But just wait until I get free. Just wait." Nancy made no reply, and the woman, still muttering threats, was led away. "Madame speaks English without an accent," Mr. Drew observed. "The truth is, she hasn't a drop of foreign blood. She was born in New York City, and her name is Mary Smith." "Monsieur Papier hasn't been found yet?" "No, but the police are hard on his trail. They think he's in hiding around here, but I shan't be able to stay in Candleton to await his capture. I must return to my work at River Heights tomorrow. Have an important case up in federal court." "Oh," murmured Nancy, unable to hide her disappointment. "Then that means we must leave the case entirely to the police." "Not unless you've lost interest," he smiled meaningly. "Oh, Dad, you know how much solving the mystery means to me. I hope those men are still around here." "I hope so too, Nancy. We are not letting it be known Madame has been caught. In fact, we planted information here and there that she went back to the vicinity of Candleton. I believe she and Harry Tyrox work hand in glove, and he'll trail her there. I'd like to have you stay at Candleton a few days longer to keep in touch with the situation. If anything develops that you think you can't handle alone, I'll try to fly back." The next morning Mr. Drew took the train for River Heights. He had barely left when Nancy asked Bess and George if they would go out to Bald Head Cliff with her again. "And have you go to sleep on our hands?" George cried. "And maybe be put to sleep ourselves? I should say not." "I don't fancy being carried off by a man, even if he is an elf," said Bess. "Anyway, I promised Mrs. Chantry I'd help her unpack a lot of gifts, which arrived yesterday." Nancy finally prevailed upon George to make the trip by promising to go by car and avoiding the cave. "But I thought you were supposed to stay around here to catch a certain Harry Tyrox who was posing as Monsieur Papier," George reminded her friend. "I am. Dad and the police set a trap to get him back to Candleton to look up Madame, but they don't think Harry Tyrox will come out of hiding until nightfall. If he's caught, then I'll probably go home and maybe never solve the mystery of the tolling bell, so I want to work on it now." "How do you expect to accomplish that on top of the cliff?" "I think there may be some connection between the ghost in the cave and the disappearance of the McGuires. Another thing, I've been giving a lot of thought to that queer dream I had while lying on the cliff. I've decided one of those little elves may have been Grumper, the misshapen man A.H. told me about." "Oh, Nancy," scoffed George, "how could he be? A.H. said he thought Grumper was around Candleton. And you believe he's a ghost and lives in the cave with a tolling bell and sends up deadly fumes through the rocks? Really, Nancy, I think this time you're going pretty far with your ideas." "Maybe," the Drew girl conceded. She refused to say more, but could not get the strange happenings on the cliff out of her mind. The answer may lie in the McGuire's deserted home, she decided. "Anyway, I'm going to look for a clue there." Nancy drove to the footpath which led to the cliff and parked. The girls walked the rest of the way to the deserted house, gazing about in all directions to find out if they had been seen. Apparently, no one was nearby to observe their actions. "This place does have a spooky look," George said uneasily as they went up to the door. Nancy pushed it open. Everything appeared exactly as she last had seen it. The moldy, cobwebby food remained on the dining room table, and the 2 dust-covered chairs stood at each end. "I never saw such thick cobwebs in all my life," George gasped. A worn Bible on a marble-topped table drew Nancy's attention. Blowing off the dust, she slowly turned the pages until she came to the family birth and death records. "This is what I hoped to find," she exclaimed, and pointed to a notation in faded ink. "Amy's marriage is recorded here. Oh! Now what, Nancy?" "Amy married a man named Ferdinand Slocum. Why, Slocum is the name of the hotel clerk at Fisher's Cove. But Slocum is a fairly common name. He may not be the same person." "True," Nancy acknowledged. "Let's see what else we can find." The other records were of no interest to Nancy, but she did find among the pages of the Bible a letter which had been written by Amy to her parents. Obviously, it was sent soon after her runaway marriage 2 years before. In the letter, she disrespectfully referred to her mother and father as being far behind the times. "Maybe I don't love Ferdy," she had written flippantly, "but he's a big hotel man, and we'll have a lot of fun together. Ferdy is a man of the world. He's a big businessman, not like those boys at Candleton who only think about following the sea. I'll write again after Ferdy and I are settled in our own hotel." "I'll bet they never were in any better one than the Fisher's Cove Hotel," George guessed after hearing the letter. "This note explains a number of things that puzzled me," Nancy cried elatedly. "George, our case is closing in." "Find anything else of interest?" "Yes, here's something," Nancy cried an instant later. George, however, did not hear her, for she had made an important discovery of her own. "Nancy, look at these cobwebs on the table," she exclaimed. "They're real enough, but they're not attached to anything." "Just put there, you mean?" Nancy bounded across the room to look. "You're right. Someone is using this cottage as a hideout." "But why would anyone go to so much work just to make this place look weird and deserted?" George asked. "We ought to call the police." "I agree with you," Nancy spoke quietly as she stooped to pick up a torn sheet of paper from the floor. "What's that?" her friend asked. "Mr. Hendrick's torn note that was stolen from the Salsindee shop," Nancy replied. George started to cross the room to see the paper for herself, but as she took a step, a masculine voice from directly behind the 2 girls said coldly, "Don't make a move, either of you. Put up your hands and march straight ahead." Uh-oh, in trouble again. Until next time.